occurred. Fascinating. I'm a doctor, not a mechanic.
Thank you, love you. Mwah.
Most illogical.
Aye, sir.
Well, that was different. Yep, lousy, but different.
Places, please, and here we go.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, bears, Zetarians, and things, to episode 74 of the MuppeTrek podcast. I'm Jarman.
And I'm Steve. We're here to compare, contrast, and confer about our two favorite franchises. And Jarman, what are those?
Those are, of course, the Muppets and Star Trek, and we do one-to-one reviews of the Star Trek original series and the Muppet Show. I mixed that up a little bit.
And this week we have special guest Muppet Show on the Muppet Show, John Denver, and Star Trek the original series episode, The Lights of Zetar. Or Zetar? How do you pronounce it?
Zetar.
Zetar.
I'm sure Bill will tell us we got it wrong. But
Yeah.
Steve, first tell us about who this person is, John Denver on the Muppet Show.
Well, his real name, Henry John Deutschendorf Jr., right by John Denver's John Denver as a stage name. He was an American singer, songwriter, actor, activist, and humanitarian. Some of his biggest songs were Take Me Home Country Road, Rocky Mountain High, Thank God I'm a Country Boy.
Lots of hits.
He was, in 1974, named the Poet Laureate of Colorado. But he died actually not too far from where I am now on the afternoon of October 12th, 1997. He crashed a home-built aircraft in Monterey Bay near Pacific Grove, which is an hour and a half south of me.
And sadly, he had already lost his license for intoxication on several times, a couple DUIs. And so he didn't even have a license to be flying legally when he did crash at that time. So it was kind of unfortunate.
John.
Yeah, he had problems with alcoholism throughout his life, but, bittersweet. He's a good
folk
guy.
life destroys so many good people.
Apparently, it's that hardcore folk life, man.
Hardcore folk life. What's he up to this week on the Muppet Show? Well, backstage, Kermit announces that the crew and everybody is going to get ready for a weekend camping trip with John Denver. Everyone's excited at first until he reveals they're going to the swamp. Piggy struggles with this and refuses to go until Kermit offers to give the other pig lady, Annie Sue, a swimming lesson, and then Piggy quickly changes her mind. Piggy visits John in his dressing room and tells him she's finally ready for camping, and he prepares her by telling her about snakes and gators and spiders, and it freaks her out. She goes to tell Kermit that she does not want to go to the swamp. Kermit suggests they go to where she was born, the sty, where pigs eat swill and wallow in the mud. And then she karate chops the crap out of him. This is maybe my favorite exchange between these two in the entire show so far.
Yeah, because he's finally getting one in on her.
Oh, yeah. On stage, Kermit introduces John Denver, and the episode is going all into the country. We get a bunch of Muppets in a war zone, which seems to range from the War of 1812 to World War I and II, and maybe the French and Indian War in there, and they sing Why Can't We Be Friends? John hits the stage and sings the Garden Song, a lovely song about sowing the land as plants actively grow around him and eventually join him in singing. We get a trip to the Swedish chef's outdoor kitchen. He's trying to cook in the wilderness and hunt squirrels, which he shakes from the tree. They escape and bring a bear that chases him off. Piggy performs Trees. This was last heard, I believe, in season 1, performed by Wayne, very shortly before a tree falling on him. It's a lovely ballad, and then she chops some wood after the tree makes fun of her. Next, we get pigs scaling a mountainside. They perform the Happy Wanderer during the Valderrama as they one by one lose grip on the mountain and fall, presumably to their deaths. John Denver hits the stage one last time for Grandma's Feather Bed, where him and a bunch of Muppets and dogs are crowded into a lumpy feather bed, and they sing about it. Kermit thanks John, with his camping knapsack on. Kermit says everyone else backed out, and John offers, well, I'll still take camping. I'll teach you how to catch frogs. And Kermit is traumatized. And that is what we call the Muppet Show.
He even says that that's why his eyes look the way they do. Is because,
why do you think my eyes look like this? Yeah. Like, whoa. So, John, what did you think of this week's episode with John Denver?
I think he did a great job as a host. And one of our big, litmus tests we always use is how are they with the Muppets? I think he's great with the Muppets. He felt like he was completely at ease and comfortable with them. He seems like just a chill, relaxed guy. He was probably high the whole time, so who cares? But we were missing a lot of our favorite segments. There weren't a lot of the standard or any really.
I like that we got Swedish Chef's Kitchen and they adjusted it to the outdoor theme, which I really appreciated.
That is true. They did do that, and I just think that But then the numbers that had just the Muppets in them were really solid too. Like the pigs climbing was really fun and really well done.
That was really fun.
The number of them at the Why Can't We Be Friends out in the battlefield was really cool. Lots of different Muppets there. And the numbers with him were good. The really cute flower number, and then him in the bed with all the other Muppets was really cute. I just think it's a really solid episode and the best episode of season 4 so far.
I think that he stuck in his lane while still not like, because he did some folk songs. He didn't do really any of his music.
That's true.
Which is kind of crazy to think about. Didn't really do any of his music. Had some good interactions and was willing to be silly and kept to like wholesome family humor.
Yeah.
Which is all what was in his lane, and he did it well, I think.
Yeah, it was just like I was entertained throughout. It was solid. There wasn't like a lame number in there, I didn't think. It just was, good, really good, solid episode.
All right. What did you think was the best Muppeteering moment this week?
Well, I have to say, probably after I thought about it, would be Grandma's bed number, because they had all those working Muppets in this one giant bed, but also had to somehow make it possible for John Denver to actually lie in it. And so like that must have been a little engineering feat of itself. So I just like that aspect of it.
My favorite, I'm going to go with the pigs up the mountain, but specifically at the end, when there's just the one pig left up there, because that one pig really sells the rest of the number by himself. And I'm always very impressed when a single Muppet can go and hold the stage.
That's true. That's not always easy.
So in that regard, I appreciate that performance specifically.
And what are our trivia song info for this episode, Steve?
Oh, man. Music this week. Why Can't We Be Friends? Ironically, by the funk band War. It's a unique song in that each verse is sung by a different member of the band.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize that.
Garden Song by David Mallet, one of John Denver's contemporaries, actually. John Denver wasn't the only one to cover this song, though. Arlo Guthrie, Peter, Paul, and Mary, and even John Lithgow on his album In the Bathtub. It's on YouTube, and it's delightful.
Nice.
The UK spot this week, Trees by Oscar Rasbach, American pianist and composer. He was actually a Kentucky boy who went all the way to Vienna to study music. The Happy Wanderer, music by Friedrich Wilhelm Möller. I'm trying. Lyrics from a poem by Florence Friedrich Sigismund. Möller's sister directed a children's choir and recorded this version at a competition. BBC Radio played it in 1953, and it became one of the biggest hits in the UK in 1954.
Wait, which song was this?
The Happy Wanderer. Valderie.
Valderie.
That was like a top 20 song in the UK in the 50s. Grandma's Feather Bed. By classic bluegrass musician Jim Connor. He was inducted into the Bluegrass Hall of Fame, which I didn't know existed, but of course it does, and is known as one of the greatest banjo players to have ever lived.
Wow.
That's right.
Learned a lot.
So, John, what happened this week on our episode of Star Trek: The Original Series?
Well, this week we have the Lights of Zetar, or Zetar, however you want to say it, Keytar. So we have the Enterprise is on its way to Memory Alpha, which any Star Trek fan, that sounds really familiar whether you remember this episode or not, because that's the name of the Wikipedia for Star Trek now. And appropriately, it's called that because this planetoid is home to the
the repository for all the knowledge. I was blown away.
Exactly. It's a central library for the Federation. It's open and free to all peoples, no matter what race or where you're from. You can go there for information. So they soon find that this weird storm-like thing is also on its way there, moving at warp speed, which should be impossible for any natural phenomenon. So something has to be unnatural about it. They try to intercept it before it gets to Memory Alpha, but it enters the ship, and it affects every crew member's nervous system a little differently. Some of them, they can't speak, some of them they can't see, and then the effects go away, except for one Lieutenant Mira Romaine, who's new to the ship, and Scotty is apparently in love with her. She faints completely from the storm, and she becomes unresponsive and starts making weird grunting noises, like those kind of noises. Really pretty. The storm moves on to Memory Alpha, basically destroying it and killing everyone there in the process. So they beam down afterwards, after the storm flies away, to find only one woman alive who is also grunting in that same way, and she also dies of a brain hemorrhage shortly thereafter before she can say anything. So Mira then beams down as well, and she's terrified because apparently she just saw all this happen in a vision. And another vision's telling her right then that they all need to get back to the ship immediately because the weird storm is returning. So they finally find out the so-called storm is actually a collection of life forms. And Kirk tries to communicate with it, but to no avail. So they fire a warning shot at it, which does nothing. So then they fire directly into it, which causes Mira to fall down in pain. So Scotty tells Kirk this, so they stop the attack. And after talking to Mira more, once she comes back from being in pain, Kirk, Scotty, Bones, and Spock figure out that her brain patterns have been altered to match the weird light storm beings. And this helps them make some strange leap that the light beings are trying to take over Mira's body. And somehow this leads them to a plan that they want to let the beings take her over, have her fight to retain some control, and then shove her into an atmospheric chamber and bump up the pressure until it kills the light beings. So once they enter her body, they tell Kirk that they are the last remnants of the beings that used to live on a planet called Zetar, which was thought to have been wiped out centuries ago, and they've been traveling for centuries looking for a body to take over so they can have ears and eyes and feel again. And all the people that on Memory Alpha were fighting being taken control of, so they died. But Mira's mind is pliable. That's what they just found out earlier, that her mind is apparently pliable, so they were able to take her over. And Kirk says, you can't have her. So he shoves her into the chamber. Spock boosts the pressure up until they all die. This seems to have no effect on Mira, luckily, and she survives. They then send her off to oversee repairs and to salvage Memory Alpha, basically saying a big F you to Scotty and her love with him together, and we never see her again. So that's the end of the Lights of Zetar. So Steve, what do you think of this episode?
All right. So some things I liked. I like Scotty episodes, but I don't like that this was another one where he's like head over heels for a girl and gets him into mischief. Mm-hmm. Which is like, I feel like the two other Scotty episodes we've had.
Yeah, that one in season 1 where he fell in love with some lady and got him in trouble because she disappeared.
Or he was accused of a murder. That was the one with Piglet guy in it.
Yep.
So yes, like Scotty, boo, they didn't do anything with him. Chekhov and Sulu only have like 4 lines in this whole episode, and 2 of them are to set up and execute a sexist joke.
Yes, that's true.
Scotty doesn't seem to be the one to choose brains. I don't even know if he knows she has brain. I was like, what? Oh, come on, guys.
Jesus.
You jackasses. Those are 2 of your lines. I hope you enjoyed them. And I thought the Zetar effect, the strobe, if what I saw was the original, which I think they would have been able to do it at the time, it was pretty good looking.
I think it's an enhanced version of what they did in the original. But yeah, it's similar to what the original, but it's the kaleidoscopy kind of effect. And that's how it looked in the original, but they just made it look a little sharper, basically.
Okay.
So it's not entirely changed.
Never mind. It's dead to me.
It's not entirely changed, though. It's impressive.
Some other dislikes, thing I struggled with. This was a very bottle episode, and you could really feel it was a very bottle episode. And I understand their budget got cut this last season. They were really stretching. But they've done other much better bottle episodes.
Oh, yeah.
So I think maybe that's my complaint.
I feel like it was really stretching and dragging for time at times. It was just like, okay, come on. Let's move this.
And the only big reveal is that it wasn't an anomaly and it's some sort of entity, but otherwise it didn't feel like there was any mystery. Like normally it's like one question leads to another question, leads to another question, leads to another question. And this just felt like, it's the entity. All right, well, now we know.
Now we just stop it somehow.
Yeah, somehow, I guess. Pressure chamber? I don't know. Science? Yeah.
Well, my big thing, too, is that we've had already, I think, plenty now of ancient civilizations that died out long ago that are trying to live on through other beings that they take over against their will.
Yeah, we've had wasn't that 2 episodes ago? The computer left behind to send a message and all that?
And then there were the beings who took over their bodies. Like, this happened multiple times now. Like, come on. Come on.
The Triskelion, I think, is one of them.
Maybe. We have the ones like we've already had the millions of beings testing humanity. Now we have the beings that are taking over humanity so they can live on. Versus
the other week where it was beings that needed humans to give them STDs and diseases.
Yes.
It's all
at least that one was somewhat different.
Season 3 is confusing.
It's weird. Very sciencey though, this episode. Felt very sci-fi-y, like if you like that kind of thing. Which,
I don't know. I'm not into it. I just watched Star Trek for the,
exactly.
for the sweet 70s hairdos or 60s hairdos.
It just felt kind of all over the place. Like the thing, like, is she psychic? Now she has visions. Why does she have visions? They didn't explain why Zetarians can see in the future, I guess. Or was that their plans? It wasn't explained. And then her mind is pliable, which is a terrible thing to say about somebody, but like they're saying it like it was a compliment.
It wouldn't have been so bad, except for the only other person we saw that the Zetarians took over was also a woman. And so it was like, come on.
Yeah, like what are they implying here?
You should have just made that a dude and it would have fixed the whole thing.
Yeah. Rough overall, I'd say. I don't know.
Rough. I don't know. This may end up sort of in my bottom 3-ish.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm so lukewarm on this episode.
This is getting towards my bottom 3-ish too. I'll have to see what else was in season 3, but this is feeling pretty rough.
We're gonna go back and remember all sorts of terrible ones we forgot about.
This wasn't like, oh god, this is so bad, but it was more like it could have been a lot better. Like it was lazy almost. But I feel bad saying all this because this will transition to the trivia. Is that this was co-written by Sherry Lewis, who many listeners might recognize as Lamb Chop Lady.
Okay.
So this episode was co-written by Sherry Lewis, so famous later on for Lamb Chop, and her husband Jeremy Tarcher, excuse me. They were both in the opening credits. I saw that name and I was like, wait, is that actress Sherry Lewis? And the funny part is, in the trivia, it even says Sherry Lewis co-wrote this with her husband and wrote the part of Mary, was it? I'm forgetting now.
Mary Sue?
Mira. She wrote the part of Mira for her to be in the episode, and they cast somebody else. And so this woman was not her, but I did see the name Sherry Lewis, and I was like, I know that name. So I looked it up. I was like, oh, it's the Lamb Chop Lady. But it was cool because they weren't putting female names as writers for a lot of shows yet. So this is kind of like, because even DC Fontana, who's a big writer for Star Trek, she had to put DC Fontana instead of Dorothy Fontana.
Right. She hit it.
Exactly. So it was kind of cool that Sherry Lewis got her name on there. But Sherry Lewis was the one who decided to write the romantic angle centering on Scotty as a way to break away from the formula of Kirk always getting the love interest, which was pretty cool. She gave Scotty some more time there.
She laid it on pretty thick.
Oh, yeah. But he didn't get to kiss her the whole time, which is unfortunate.
But he thought about it a lot, Captain.
Oh, and I got drunk and I thought about it all night long. But this is
Gonna
also
go drink some brandy and drown me tears.
Drown me tears and sorry and browning. I was a pirate. This is the as we see in Memory Alpha, you see the dead aliens. This is the final episode in which we see a Tellarite and an Andorian in the original series, and they're dead bodies. Shit. So there you go. And that is the Lights of Zetar. So what are our Trek connection, Muppet connections so far?
Oh, man. One of them's okay. The other one's stretching. John Denver was in the 1977 Oh God with fellow Muppet Show guest George Burns. His wife was played by Terry Garr, who is in Star Trek, the original series episode, Assignment Earth.
Yes,
the season 2 finale.
Mm-hmm.
John Denver's songs have been used in many shows and movies, including The Last Man on Earth, which starred Kristen Schaal, who had a cameo in the 2011 The Muppets as Animal's anger management code. It took a bit.
Those were really pretty
tough.
tenuous.
I could find no obvious connections. It was a really rough.
Wow, even a big star like John Denver, that's surprising.
Well, the thing is, he's been dead, so there's like a cutoff point where if he didn't do it before that point, there's no other possibilities.
That's true. Don't get in homemade planes.
These were the same episode, right?
Huh?
Harrison Ford's gotten in plenty of planes and crashed them and been okay.
But he wasn't in homemade planes. That's the difference.
In no less than 4 planes.
Well, I keep trying to die, but you keep rescuing me. I'm just flying up there and crashing over and over again.
Indiana just wants to rest.
So tired of playing these same roles over and over again.
I'm just gonna hang my head up.
Please.
I thought that shy kid was gonna do it. Boy, what a disappointment.
I bet my money on the wrong horse.
Anyway, so these were basically the same episode. This is the same episode, man.
Oh, man. Both feature people with mixed feelings about going someplace new. Scotty and Mira sort of have apprehensions about transfer to Memory Alpha, and Kermit and Piggy camping in the swamp.
That's very true. On the Muppets episode, the Whatnots ask, why can't we be friends in their Battlefield number, just as Kirk asks the Lights of Zetar, why can't we be friends?
Both feature exploring the roots of where something comes from. The space entity actually coming out now being the now extinct Zetar. Wow, I wrote that stupid. And Kermit comes from the swamp and Piggy from the sty.
That's true. Miss Piggy.
Origin stories.
Miss Piggy doesn't want to carry her own bags to go camping until she thinks she might lose Kermit to Annie Sue. Just as Mira doesn't want to carry the Lights of Zetar in her head until she thinks that if she doesn't, she'll lose Scotty to, well, death.
Oh, man. That one was so good.
Oh, yeah.
Transporter malfunction.
What's that noise?
Transporter malfunction.
Zetans.
All right, so now it's the time of the show where we transport one character from one episode to the other and vice versa. So what you got for us, Steve?
All right, so I'm going to bring over the people affected by the Zetarians or Zetarans. I don't know. So that like the people they find that are still there are like, I'm going to bring them over and put them on the mountain for the Wanderer number, and so they're going to sing like Valerie, Valderat, Valerie, Valderat, and then but the lights hit them, and they go rah, and then fall off the mountain one at a time.
That works well. From Star Trek to Muppets, I'm going to have Mira transport over to take Piggy's place, as apparently her brain is super pliable, so she will just be a lot more kind to Kermit and the rest of the Muppets.
True. Bring over Grandma's feather bed to replace the space entity.
Oh.
A dozen people and animals drifting through space in a lumpy feather bed.
I love it.
Instead of all those sparkly lights, it's just a top-down shot of that bed filled with Muppets.
So, yes, going through space. Muppets of Star Trek, I'd have 100 John Denvers transport over to take the place of the Lights of Zetar. They'd be so chill. Like, but everyone would just let them take over their bodies because they'd be like, yeah, man, can I just take care of your body for a little while? I'll be real nice to it. And they'd be like, yeah, man, just why not?
I'm just going to use it to build a plane. That's all.
Oh, God. And that's how everyone on the Enterprise dies.
That's right. They
build a plane and it crashes. That's terrible. Well, that brings us to the end of episode 74 of the MuppeTrek podcast.
So join us next time for the Muppet Show with special guest Crystal Gale.
And original series episode, Requiem for Methuselah.
So, from the lovers, the dreamers, and us.
Live long and prosper, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the MuppeTrek podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media on Facebook and Twitter.
Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform.
This podcast has been brought to you by A Play on Nerds.